rebuttal, I would like you to welcome warmly Sister Mary Alice Miller for her rebuttal.
Okay, I was wondering if I did that. I want to thank you all. I learned a lot from what Dr. Mack said, but I feel a little uncomfortable because Dr. Mack questioned, and he had the right to question, the stretching of the definition of rape. But I feel uncomfortable because I think that he stretched the definition of lynching a little too far for me. That made me uncomfortable. I'm going to explain why. He questioned why rape, that we think we all know the definition of, changed during the 1970s or so to include date rape. As if date rape is not rape. Date rape is rape. Date rape was a more crystallized form of describing a type of rape, just like marital rape. Also during that time period actually became acknowledged and became illegal too, because prior to like the 70s and the expansion of the women's rights movement in the 1960s, a man could be married to the woman and force her to have sex with him at any time, whether she was still recovering from giving birth to the child, the newborn the day before or whatever. There was nothing she could do about it because it was her husband. She could not consent, really, to sex with her husband because he was her husband. But then the definition of marital rape was developed. And a similar track happened with date rape, too. Yes, date rape occurred. It's been occurring since forever. I could go into a thing, but I won't. The bottom line is that I feel uncomfortable about the stretching of the definition of the term lynching, because Bill Cosby is still alive. And a lot of the other men that Dr. McIntosh mentioned, Michael Jordan, Mike Tyson, they're still alive. They were not tied to the back of a truck and dragged down a country road in Texas with their parts just strewn across the road. They were not tied to a tree and dipped in and out of a fire like Dr. McIntosh mentioned. Bill Cosby is still alive. He's still enjoying all of the money that he has earned. The thing is that Bill Cosby cannot live the way he thought he could live in a patriarchal society as a male who thought he could do whatever he wanted to do to any female at any time without any accountability. And this is my point, that at a certain point our community has to start talking about accountability, not just accountability with the female, with the adult women and the girls, but also accountability with the sexual behavior of the men too. Dr. Mack told you himself, so what, he had an extramarital affair. That just meant that he was heterosexual. No. That meant that he cheated on his wife. He broke his vows. He chose not to control his behavior. He chose not to keep his vows to his wife foremost above his craven sexual behaviors. I want to just, in my closing, I just want to expand why this is important to the black community. Do we need discussions about accountability of sexual behavior in our community? Not just among the women, but among the men too. We don't have these discussions. It's not even in our culture, really. How bad it gets. Last week, maybe it's published Sunday, but it was published initially last week, during the last few days. The Washington Post had a major story about a little girl, 11 years old, a little black girl, who was raped 7 years ago in Washington, D.C. She was raped twice in a month by adult men. And Washington D.C. police arrested her, put her in the Child Protective Services system. She went through all kinds of problems. The girl is 18 now. She's talking now because she says there's so many little girls go through the same thing she went through, and she went through hell. The reason why I'm bringing this up is because those adult males who raped her, gang raped this little girl twice, went unaccountable. Their behavior went unaccountable. Nobody arrested them to this day. The DC police chief, Lanier, actually was forced to apologize to the little girl's adopted mothers, parents. And the reason this happens is because in our community, we dismiss the bodily autonomy of black women and girls. White women too, in the Bill Cosby case. We dismiss what they say. We dismiss that they're not clear when they're drugged. We dismiss that they actually got drugged. We dismiss it all. And when we dismiss it, we dismiss a lot. I'm going to say that as a result of just being a plain round-the-way woman and being a reporter, I've heard all types of stories. I'm not one of those people that drive. So I'm in this line on Rite Aid, I'm in the bus, I'm in the laundromat, I'm in the supermarket, I'm in the corner store, and I hear stories and I listen to people, and the people who drive don't realize the stories that go on, the interactions that go on. And so many stories I've heard from black women who, there was one point where for some reason, women who were 34 years old were coming to me telling me their stories. And their oldest child, not only child, their oldest child was 17. If you count back, that 34-year-old was sexually abused or raped at 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. And the problems that happens as a result of that. I was just telling Dr. Sanford when I first came in that I found a cluster of black boys in foster care who have been subject to brain surgery operations and experiments. Their mothers were underage, unmarried, and their fathers raped and sexually abused them. This is so common in our communities, and we don't pay attention to it. We don't even, the women, the girls are invisible, literally, to us. I talk to them, I ask them how old the baby daddy is, 34, 52, 49, 25. We don't have a organic structure in our community to say, adult men, you need to control your behavior, at least toward the little girls. We don't have that in our community. And this is one thing I've been advocating for years. Well, I can't even tell you, I know I have 5 minutes. If I could tell you, I'm like really hurting right now. Because if I could tell you some of the community leaders who I have asked, can we have a march in front of that pedophile's house because he's impregnating 8-year-olds or 10-year-olds? And I would be told no. If I tell you the names of these people, I don't want to do that, but there's names you know. If I could tell you the names of, the times when I was asked, like in a meeting or whatever, what kind of, we were asked for ideas about community activism that's needed. And I said, well, why don't we have a march or rally on, let's say, Fulton and Truth, to say that the sexual solicitation of little girls is not the community standard. I was told, we cannot do that because it would be divisive. So this is why I said in the beginning that black somehow equals male and the female entity is not in it. I wasn't even asking for protection for adult women. But I remember what I went through as a little girl. I could tell you some stuff. I'm a survivor. But see, the things that I went through is commonplace. Very common. And that's how I can identify it when it's happening to the next generation. And we as a people don't have these conversations. At a certain point, we need to have conversations about what is appropriate sexual behavior towards each other, both on the male side as well as the female side. What is the appropriate or inappropriate sexual behavior towards somebody who's not your spouse, especially if that person is a child? And why do you have to drug somebody in order to do whatever you do? The drugging or incapacitating of someone in order to be involved with them sexually, that is a very common thing too. Very common. I was taught at an early age. Never put my glass down at a party. When somebody gives me a drink, don't drink it. Definitely do not take anybody's pills. Unless it's a prescription that my doctor gave me that I took to the pharmacy and I got that prescription. And then in my own home, if I have people in my home, I have to be careful to put my prescription away. Because I don't know if somebody's flipping medications or taking it or whatever. You know, these things happen in our communities. And what's the point of them happening? What's the point of giving somebody drugs to incapacitate them so they can't remember or they black out or however Dr. Mack wants to just, whatever, there's no good reason for anybody to be giving somebody drugs. There's no legitimate reason to be having you have somebody in your house, you invite them in, you give them a cup of water, and in the next 2 minutes, like Beverly Johnson said, she took 2 sips and she realized she was drugged up. There's no excuse for that. Lynch or no lynch, no matter how you define it, there's no excuse for it. You know, I feel bad as a black person that Bill Cosby, the end of his career, has turned out like this. His work will stand forever, but you know, the best thing he could really do is atone, publicly atone. But he won't do that. And the more he refuses to publicly atone, the deeper he digs his hole. He's getting ready to leave us maybe in another generation. He might live to be 100. He's 77, 78 now. He has plenty of time, but we don't know how long he has to really atone. That's something that could teach us how to live too. You know, not just those fairy tales that he put on TV. Thank you.
Very powerful message. And collectively, we have managed to raise $1,000. Now I would like to call Dr. James McIntosh for his 10-minute rebuttal and summation.
Thank you very much. I wanted to clarify one thing that Sister Mary said, which is that I did differentiate date rape from what was classically the idea of rape, but it was in the context of saying that when you're dealing with things that happened in 1965, 1970, so on and so forth, this concept of date rape really wasn't widespread. And it certainly didn't extend to if a man and a woman are out there drinking and the woman gets drunk and they end up in bed together. That wasn't considered rape by anybody's terms. Now it might be. You better tell your sons, I told you before, about that kind of thing. I'm not condoning date rape. I'm simply giving the historical context for some of these charges against Cosby. The issue really wasn't whether Cosby was innocent or guilty, but I could argue on the innocent also. I want to tell you, why would you tell me that there's 18 people if I can go right off the top and dismiss 8, you know, on the basis of what the people said? I told you about the young lady. That certainly was not a rape in my estimation, the one where she goes back with him to his dressing room, waits till everybody leaves, after he'd already said to her, would you like to marry me? She took pills that one of the articles said he told her were Quaaludes. Why would you do that? And then say that then claim that the person raped you, and then stay with them for weeks, and then they have to send you away. I don't consider that rape. There's another case in which a woman, she says her and her they double dated with Camille and Bill. When the date was over, you know, they were at the house. Camille went to bed. Her date went home. She says she stayed there with, these are her words, she stayed there with Bill and he tried to kiss her. She said he roughly grabbed her and tried to kiss her. She said she pulled away, and he said, "What's wrong?" And she said, "I've never been kissed by a black man before." These are her words. He says, "Well, is it any different?" She said, "No." He said, "Well, it must have been different because you pulled away." She said, "Then he came at me again, and I got out of there." She's on the list. Nothing more than that happened. He went in for the kiss. She didn't want the kiss. He probably thought she wanted the kiss if she stays in his house after his wife goes to bed and her date goes home. He made a mistake. That's not rape. There's another case of a woman who was a writer for him. She says that she was with him, and that she says he forced her to perform oral sex. She says she had a red eye. He gave her a drink which was a red eye. Now, she, by her own admission, is an alcoholic. One red eye is really 2 drinks. It's a drink with a beer poured into it. You understand? It's already an alcoholic beverage. So now it's not really 1 drink, it's 2 drinks. Coming from an alcoholic, again, maybe it was 1 drink, maybe it was 2 drinks. So she was saying she wasn't feeling woozy. However, she was feeling woozy, but she still was able to tell him. He had said he wanted to have sex with her, and she told him that she had an infection. She said she had an infection, and then she says he just used another orifice, saying that he forced her to have oral sex. Now, no, she told what it was. It was oral sex. So she said, but now, no weapon, no violence. Let's say, though, we give her the benefit of the doubt. She's with him again. Why would you be with him again? This next time, she says she drank 2 red eyes, which is 40. Why would you drink 4 drinks with somebody that you said took advantage of you before? I don't think she should be on the list. There's another woman who now is an attorney, but at the time, she was in show business in some respect, and I can't tell you exactly what it is because I don't remember. I made a chart. That's what I'm going down now. This is all on the first 18 that they have. She says that she went to his house and she had some alcohol. She said she felt sick. No, I'm sorry. She felt sick before she went there. That's right. She felt sick before she went there. She goes there, and she says he offered her 2 contacts. She says she took the 2 contacts. And then she says she really just was feeling not feeling herself, so on and so forth. He took her home, and she admits that she wasn't thinking anything was wrong till when she got to the house. He's helping her to undress because she's sick. And then she says he started kind of feeling her up or doing something like that. So she went bananas. Like, what are you doing, blah, 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 blah. Now, here's where he insulted her. He then goes, he leaves, and I'm saying, if this isn't saying that this happened. These are her words. You understand me? Everything we're giving, everything that you've heard is unfounded testimony. Unfounded testimony is like shadow boxing. You can do a lot of push-ups and a lot of exercise and jump rope, and you can look good fighting next to the mirror. You can get in a ring, and you get knocked out. You have a right to cross-examination in a real court. Lynching is extrajudicial punishment. They want to punish Cosby without setting foot into a court to explain, why did you drink the 4 drinks? Okay? Now, she had these contacts, she said, that he told her they were contacts. She felt sick. He started to grope her. That's what she says. She told him, no, get out of here. He left. That's not a rape. Is that a rape? I don't know. No, that's not a rape. Not as far as I can see. There's another one here that he picked her up at the Cafe Figaro. He offered her a ride home. White woman. And he takes her to the beach instead. She says at the beach he started trying to feel her up and stuff like that. She says she jumped up, she ran out of the car. She tore her dress in the process. He told her, no, come back. He takes her back, takes her, goes and buys her a dress, takes her home. No sex. Is that a rape? Why is this on the list? This is my point. If the man is a serial rapist, you don't have to have this many cases that don't belong on the list. Now, she's suing, I believe, for defamation. But she would certainly lose the case for defamation if instead of saying that she's a liar, he had said that she was a drug trafficker, a person involved in fraud and ID theft, because those are all things she actually has been convicted for. Why is she on the list? That's my question. There's another one who she says that she was with, he gave her a white pill for a migraine. She said she had a migraine. He gave her a white pill. She doesn't remember what happens, but she awoke in a hotel room, she said, with a friend of his. Did y'all catch that? She's somewhere with Cosby. She says he gave her a pill for a migraine. She wakes up in a hotel room with somebody else. She's blaming Cosby. How is that rape? She's in the bed with somebody else. I don't think she should be on the list. There's another woman, an actress. She says in a dressing room. In a dressing room, I believe they were at the Johnny Carson show, if I'm not incorrect. They were in a dressing room. You know, there's other people in a dressing room. Said he tells her beforehand, you know, more or less, I'm going to help you with your career. He tells her, I'm going to help you with your career. Then he goes over and takes his penis out. This is according to her. In the dressing room. And no weapons, pushes it in her mouth.
Yes.
Wait, hold it. Pushes it in her mouth. She says on the way out, he said, now, you don't want to mess up your career. She never says anything to anybody about it. You're in the dressing room, you can holler, you can make, so there is a phenomenon in Hollywood, and you got to understand this. All of this is taking place in the context of Hollyweird. And that concept is called the casting couch. You know, Bill Cosby didn't invent it. You can go look up people like David Selznick, look up Sam Warner, this sort of thing. Look up these things online. How does, with this long history of the casting couch, this incident that you're telling me right here, he didn't do any violent, I mean, I'm saying outside of, you know, obviously if you have sex and you don't want to, that's a violent act. But if you don't tell me I don't know how to differentiate that if she says this and he says that. No drugs involved. So they got you with this classic model that comes from Costand in 2004. Costand is able to get money because, one, she's not an extended sex worker like many of these ladies are. And I have nothing against sex workers, you know, I mean, I think they should get a different line of work, but I mean, I'm not just against them. I'm not just against them. I'm not saying that a sex worker is always lying when she says something that happened to her. But, you know, when a Playboy bunny tells you that her and her bunny instructor, they went out with Bill Cosby to dinner, that they were at dinner and they were popping pills, then they go back to his house, and then, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I'm saying that's some he said, she said stuff, especially when it's 30 or 40 years ago. I could argue on the issue of Bill Cosby being innocent, but I want to end by saying maybe the reason you don't think that Bill Cosby is lynched is because you don't know what not lynched is. See? Stephen Pagonis. Not lynched. 15-year-old girl found, rated on a coma scale, I think 3 out of 15, unresponsive to deep pain. That's by their EMTs. 15. She says that it was a white cop. White cop ends up dead. The last person who was with that cop, from my reading, was Stephen Pagonis. The one who found him is his friend, Scott Patterson. The Attorney General's report, the official report, doesn't even mention Scott Patterson's name in the report. Says that he identifies him as a state trooper. Has Tawana and her family's name 28 times in the table of contents alone. Scott Patterson, that's not lynched. All right? Woody Allen, in 1992, marries his son's sister, soon Mia Farrow, his significant other. There's charges that maybe he abused some of the other children. Since that time, he's gotten award after award. That's not lynched. You see? You screw your daughter and you get awards. You can still go to the academies, you can go to the Golden Globe and all those things like that. That's not lynched. The problem with Bill Cosby, the reason you don't think he's being lynched, is almost like that Dick Gregory joke, where the two people are on the scaffold, they've killed a lot of people, they've robbed trains and stuff, and the white guy just starts crying, says, I don't want to be hung, I don't want to be hung. And the black guy says to him, he says, man, get yourself together, man, straighten up, act like a man, take it like a man. He says, that's easy for you to say. Y'all are used to it. See, we're so used to lynching, so used to getting lynched, to when we see another black man lynched by the media like this man is being lynched on unfounded claims. It would be stupid for him to say a word. He shouldn't have said the words about any of them. You come to me with 40-year-old charges, you say a word, you make it current. They say it's defamation. In the Tawana Brawley case, they charged this 15-year-old girl with defamation because she said she was, and she has to pay him money.
Right.
But in the Bill Cosby case, it won't go that way. It won't go that way. These ladies, the bunnies and the rest of them, they will charge him with defamation, even the ones with the criminal records, and he'll have to pay. You're not. Bobby Wright wrote in his paper, sociopathic European personality. They can't follow rules. They can't even follow their own rules. They change the rules at any minute. So the way they act in the case with Tawana Brawley is entirely different from how they act in the case of Bill Cosby. That's right. The way they act with see, that's not lynch. This lawyer who was accused by two of Sharpton's people of raping them, this white lawyer, right, Rubenstein, okay, so on and so forth. Man didn't even have to go. He didn't even have to go down to the precinct. See, that's not lynched. Those are the rights you have in the judicial system. You have a right to the presumption of innocence. You have a right to cross-examine your accuser. You have the right to remain silent. But we're so used to our rights getting violated till we don't think we should have them. And see, that's why I say Bill Cosby is being lynched, because it's extra legal punishment outside of extrajudicial punishment. Thank you.
Question and answer session where you, the audience, can ask the great debaters questions that have been on your mind during the course of the debate. And so if you could begin to form the line right here, you could begin to pose your questions to the debaters.
Step out so I can see you.
Oh yes, I'm definitely going to step out. Now, before I start, to answer everybody's question, these are must books to have. This answer all the debate questions. It says taking the oath and it's the secret society, the cult. And I'm going to piggyback on what James McIntyre says. Cosby did do it to himself. I Spy, he said it. The Cosby Show, basically, if you look at his name, what it was, Cliff Huxtable. He's telling you that he was a to the top. His wife name was Claire. Claire, the clear one. She was a smart one. She was the woman of the house, which she should have been. But Cosby was jigabooing, dumbed down. Oh, don't tell your mother. Don't tell your mother. But the reason I'm getting to this is that, you know, when it comes to Hollywood, multi-ethnic destruction in America, or maniac devils in action, this is what they do to us. Jay McIntyre was right. The overall picture is Bill Cosby being lynched. Yes, because he tried to do prominent things. Nobody talks about the Morehouse, his contribution in educating black men. Nobody talks about when he donated to Spellman. No, not only that, making Malcolm X. They didn't want to make that movie. Cosby like, hell, we gonna make this movie. If I have to put up all the money. They turn around. It's like Jay McIntyre said.
Brother, even though you're on my side, right?
Yeah.
He and I had a debate.
Yeah. Okay. The question is the overall aspect, do Bill Cosby deserve this? And do you think that because that he's part of this, whole America's Favorite Dad, is it psychologically saying that even though we put you in the pedestal, we can always knock you down? Just like King Luther Crowley, teacher stays intelligent. Well, he was a doctor and he was a king. But right now he's looking like a fool. So what do you think?
You know what? My mother told me, my mother and my grandmother told me, and their friends told me about how home training came about. And they said that home training came about because black people, particularly black mothers, had to teach our children, particularly our sons, how to behave once they left the house, how to behave around other people. So if there's certain behaviors that we just know are not correct, or we just try to see if we can get away with it. Sometimes we get away with it, sometimes we don't. Some of the stuff, I'm sure that we don't even know 1/1000th of the dirt that Bill Cosby has done over his lifetime in his private life.
Yes.
He just got caught at some of the stuff.
Your question was, does he deserve it? No, I don't think he deserves it. I don't think that black men should be the test case for morality, for punishment for immorality. There's lots of people. Your governor, your past governor, Elliot Spitzer, unless you are brain dead, you believe that he saw one prostitute in his life. He got caught the first time by a wiretap when he saw one prostitute. They didn't have any list. I want a list of all the prostitutes that Elliot Spitzer saw. And if you give me that list, then I still will say leave Bill Cosby alone. But
you have the JFK.
But Elliot Spitzer had to step down from his office.
Yeah.
But Elliot
So he
Spitzer
had
was
to
able
pay-
to run for councilman again. They want to take Bill Cosby's name off of the scholarships that he has given already. They don't want, he's supposed to be persona non grata at the Academy Awards and everything else like that. Why does he get this type of, that's lynching, that's the point. It's this super punishment for outside of the judicial system that they elect to give to you. I want to say this, Sister Mary Alice, every time we've called her to do something for young people, to do something for, she walks it like she talks it. She is we came in here, brothers and sisters. We're gonna leave out of here, brothers and sisters. We just have a difference of opinion on this.
And he knew already. That's why he asked me, because I've asked him years ago. I asked literally, I asked Simo Tap, can we start having some of these conversations in our community? So he knew already.
I'm gonna give you this three names.
Step
Hugh
forward.
Hefner, JFK, and Frank Sinatra. Enough said. Lynch them. Thank you.
They kind of did though, right?
No, they did. Not what they should.
I accused you of being dead, but he's still alive.
Yeah, I want to thank y'all for
Step
coming
forward.
out. I'm all right, because he...
Step forward, son. Step forward so we can see it.
I don't need the camera, man. And I just want to say thank you for coming. Thank you for everybody coming, you know what I'm saying? This case of rape, it just takes the air and the oxygen out of the goddamn world, man. Oh, shit, sorry about that. It just takes
Imagine how the
air.
women feel.
No, I'm just saying, just hear where I'm coming from.
What is your
It
question?
just takes the air and the oxygen out the whole thing. And what I'm talking about is
What is the question?
Give him a little time.
is how we gonna go about getting the people that's creating the dynamic of molestation. Rape is secondary to it, but the rapists are actually the people that's in control of this world. They are molested children themselves. So like when we gonna like try to help, not help them out, but try to do what we gotta do, you know what I'm saying? So we ain't all on each other.
That's a
Because
good
the people
question.
that committing it, you know what I'm saying?
You know
we
what,
don't
that's-
have- we
that's-
don't have
let her
nothing to
answer,
commit-
brother.
That's-
committed on each
Good
other.
That's
question.
that's
Let her
that's a
answer.
good
Good
question,
question.
and I believe that part of it starts with dialogue. You know, that's why I was thank you and for inviting me to speak on this, because it starts with dialogue, and in the black community too long these kind of conversations have been actively suppressed. I just want to tell you all that a few years ago, maybe about 5 years ago, I looked on the New York State Sex Offender Registry, and I looked in every record of every person who's on that registry in Brooklyn zip code alone. Manhattan is a whole other issue because you have concentrations around Woods Island, and you all really need to look in the Manhattan registry. But here's what I found. I found at that time 904. I only looked for child victims age 0 to 19. I found at that time 904 child victims of sex predators. 495 were 0 to 12 years old. 495. One guy in 11226 had, quote, actual sex intercourse with a baby 0 to 364 days old. That one was on the news. The baby was 8 months old. 255 of the child victims were aged 12 to 15, and the rest that I had counted then were 16 to 19. These, what I also found, first of all, I'm saying then, because every week 2 or 3 people get added to the sex registry every week. So God only knows how many child victims are there now. In the records, you could see what the perpetrators did. They used drugs, alcohol, blunt objects, fistings, knives, guns, kidnapping. Sometimes they were the babysitter. Sometimes they were the boyfriend of the mother of the child. Sometimes they were teachers or the day camp worker, the guy on the corner, grandpa, the uncle. This stuff we don't talk about. We really don't talk about it. How the sex offender registry got created was because of a little girl called Megan in New Jersey, who was a sex predator moved in her neighborhood, and nobody knew about it, and he ended up raping and killing her. And then their parents decided to advocate for some community notification. It wasn't black people that did that. I have to let you know that nobody is monitoring. Of the 904 child victims then, nobody is monitoring the people that victimized them. Nobody. There's no structure in the black community. There's this, last year sometime, I wrote about there's like 18 child sex offenders that's missing in New York City. Just missing. They're supposed to register every year. They're missing. We don't know who the rapist, the sexual assault person is, sexual abuse person is. And I'm not saying that it's only men. There were a few women on the list too, but they were mostly men of a wide variety of backgrounds. We don't talk about these things. And the thing is, I'm not just focusing on the perpetrators. What happens to the victims? You wonder why those little girls was in McDonald's acting like savages? When we see the little black girls out on the street at the after school cursing and acting like that, a lot of times it's because they're hurt and their instinct says to act like that as a force field, as a shield, because nobody protects them. Little black girls are the most unprotected members of the black community. Nobody protects them. Nobody advocates on behalf of them. It's and the sexual abuse that goes on in our communities in 2015. And then our community, we say, oh, they shouldn't have access to medical procedures or birth control or whatever because genocide and all of that stuff. Nobody even considers the health risks that a little girl, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12-year-old go through when they give birth as a result of being raped. And the family dynamics, I was going to write a book. I'm sorry, but this came up. Because I talked to the women. And one woman, as an example, she was raped and impregnated when she was 13. Her father had the adult guy that raped and impregnated her, had him put in jail. When he came out of jail, his daughter wanted her father, but the father did not want to want to parent his child because he was forced to be listed on the sex offender registry. This is the type of family formation that comes as a result of the ignoring the well-being of little girls and the sexual abuse that we don't say anything about in our communities. And it happens a lot. It's right in front of us. We don't, it's unbelievable. That's what it is.
Should I answer the question too? The brother was asking how we can get at the source of this as opposed, so, all right? And the thing is that we drifted from the things Cosby's being accused to talking, although I do believe that that's an important topic also. I don't know how you can, on the one hand, have songs that appear to me, like you're saying, blame it on the alcohol. I don't know how you can have, at any given time in the top 10 rap songs that you have, the creative productions, they're not the, it doesn't mean that that's all our young people are producing. It means that the white distributors of this information and the white broadcasters of this information, they select from everything that black people create. They don't take something from Lady and Kalibar. They don't take anything from Brother D. And they choose to put that on the radio. And if you look at it, the top 10 rap songs at any given time will promote not only drugs, not only drinking, not only promiscuity and prostitution, not only guns, but drinking and driving. When drinking and driving together is drinking and drugging and driving together is the #1 cause of death of these of young teens. And the promiscuity, and it's not just the abuse that comes as a result of it, but how do you hypersexualize a community? Mm-hmm. How do you put sex in everything on the TV to sell all the products?
With no control.
And no control.
No checks and
Destroy
balances.
the family structure. Have over 50% unemployment and all these other things. How do you put this is a systemic problem, and even though you are talking about a specific or a small portion of it, solutions have to be addressed
Yes.
towards fixing families, keeping families together, educating our young people, giving them positive things to do, relationships with the young people so that if anything goes askew, there's somebody in there to protect them and somebody. Those are the solutions. It's not being fixated on that specific issue, although can understand how people can get fixated on such an issue. So that's my answer to that question.
My name is Siaka Lamiono. My question is for you. My question is simplistically, what's your angle? And I ask that because you talked about, you raised an issue about female rape during the slave period, but you didn't say anything about the fact that that's commonly talked about throughout different books here and there, commonly displayed throughout different movies. What's not talked about during that period, and I haven't really seen anything yet, is about some of the things that black men went through. That's not to undermine or take anything away from the sisters that endure. Let's not talk about the different atrocities that we went through from the so-called mistresses, as well as the so-called slave masters. You also raised an issue about the dating of white women throughout the late 60s, and it seemed to be remnant or reflective of something that Michelle Wallace talked about in her Black Macho and Method the Superwoman. So many of your views almost seem extremely myopic, but that's not either at this point. I guess you'll get to that when you answer that. The other thing was you talked about the fact that how things are ignored, but there's been cases, I can't remember this brother's name, I've been trying to figure it out since I've been standing here, where this was maybe about 5 years ago, maybe a little more, where he was in college, had a full scholarship, and it was ruined and taken away, where he did 6 years, I believe, 5 or 6 years for something that he didn't do. This sister has been held accountable for it. She has come to forth and said that it was a total lie, and his life was ruined behind that. There's, much of what you're saying that revolves around victim blaming. But I used to co-facilitate a program at the Riverside Church Theater of the Oppressed with Jeremiah Kyle Drake. And what I wanted to find out, and I had to fall back from him because he tended to go with the status quo about always pointing and directing the finger at men. And that speaks for itself. But what I want to find out is that in most cases, which it's not reported by patriarchal media, white media, is that women can be just as violent, just as controlling, just as detrimental to the structure of a family. Yet again, it doesn't get reported. They don't necessarily have the physical brute strength that a man has. However, they pick up things, throw things, do lots of other things. Just merely picking up the phone and making a false call allegation with regards to domestic violence is an act of violence in and of itself. The other thing is, you talked about the accountability of our behaviors as brothers within the neighborhoods. Yet nothing was spoken about, just as an example, with the sister that was on the MTA and attacked this guy with reference to his 8-ball jacket with a stiletto. You know, this was maybe about, I want to say 4 or 5 months ago. Nothing was talked about that. You know, we
My
didn't
brother,
talk.
I appreciate you, brother. Michael should really do, because he's the moderator, but there's a line of people behind you that want
Okay,
to ask a question.
yeah.
So I'm going to ask you that.
Yeah, and my last thing was in reference to our legend or whatever, and I just piggybacking on that. Ray Kelly's son. Nothing was said about that with the way he did what he did. And I'm not saying that with you guys. I'm just saying about the way that he wasn't lynched at all. At all.
You know what? I'm going to thank you for. I listened to all your questions, and I cannot answer one by one, but I'm going to say that your number of questions is a prime reason why these conversations need to occur more broadly and more consistently throughout our community, because a lot of people are thinking about these things and asking these questions. I have some answers for you. I can defend myself. I don't have an angle. I'm not myopic, but I look at things that people don't look at, and maybe people get uncomfortable because they're only used to looking at things a certain way, like black equals male. So when I start talking about the female entity and our place in this situation, there's a lot of people that get uncomfortable. I told a guy one time that I was writing a book, and he was like, "What's the book about?" I'm like, "It's a book towards for black women and girls." And he was like, "How dare you? You're black. You're not supposed to think about your femaleness." There's a lot of black males who tell black women, me too, that we're not supposed to consider our femaleness, that we're only supposed to consider our blackness. And it's impossible for us to do because we're female. So we do need more of these conversations.
This raises some important points about a topic much more important than Bill Cosby. And we need to have a separate issue. She's trying to address the issues within our community, and we're back to talking about the celebrity culture. I'm questioning whether Brother Cosby, you know, at the same time you're saying everybody does it, but then that, to me, assesses that he did it. You can't both say everybody does it, but he's innocent of it. You know? So, but
No, I just want to clarify. Just
Right.
point of clarification. What do you mean that I said everybody does it? Everybody does what?
The casting
Because he was
couch. The
cheating,
casting
kind of
couch.
casting
Yeah,
sexual,
the
and the
casting
casting
couch.
couch and
That's
stuff
right.
like that.
Everybody with the power to do it. And all of the names that you mentioned, Otto Preminger, and the sister from, I'm blanking on the, Dorothy Dandridge was on the casting couch, but that's another question. My question is,
But no,
whatever.
I want to answer that one.
Yes,
too.
sir, yes, sir.
You can't,
Right.
black people, we cannot afford to throw ourselves on the sword
Uh-huh.
as the first people to get punished for everything that's out there in the society. If you put people that are trying to succeed, no, if you put a person out in Hollywood, and that's the main culture, you don't use the black man as the first person. There's a long line of people who went through more women in a day than I should say, went through more women in a month than Bill Cosby is even accused of doing anything to. And I mean, it's already admitted and known about, and there's reasons why it's called the casting couch and not the casting bed. And I mean, that's a history. So don't bring me, if you want to start with jaywalking, for instance, don't bring a bunch of cops in here and start arresting all the black people about jaywalking. No, I'm not with you. I'm not saying I support jaywalking. I'm simply saying I don't want to be your test case. Show me by arresting some white folks first. Show me by putting some white folks in jail first. Then after you do that, then I say, okay, then we all will stop jaywalking. But I'm not going to go with that. I'm not going to go with throwing myself on the sword to be the most. I got to be the most correct slave on the plantation.
Bring to the attention of the audience, Brother Michael Eric Dyson, prior to the whole Bill Cosby sexual misconduct incident, had written, I thought, a very well-researched article when it was in his prior iteration where he was talking about the underclass, and I see Cosby as a kind of not exactly similar, but in the vein of a Ben Carson, as he's sort of going to the right wing to divide the black community, and that the lower classes, because of their sagging pants or whatever, are sort of letting down the ball. That's where he's been famous of the last 5 to 10
but
years. Bill Cosby.
But be careful. Be careful because
Okay.
Bill Cosby
Right.
is not comparable to Ben Carson.
Well, I said
Bill,
not
wait,
exactly,
wait,
not
wait.
exactly,
Bill
yeah.
Cosby actually has taken the GOP right-wing machine to task. He actually said, "What's wrong with the
Carson has
GOP?
done like
Do they
Cosby,
think
too.
that black people want to work for free? Are they mad that we don't want to work for free anymore?" Bill Cosby will take the GOP conservative machine to task. He's not like
I'm just
Ben
bringing
Carson.
point. My last point is.
I want to answer that too.
Yes, sir.
When did Ben Carson ever do anything like Bill Cosby's Black History Lost, Stolen, Astray? You should go take a look at that.
I've seen it
Never.
many times.
When
I've seen
did
it
Ben
many
Carson ever donate
Right.
$26 million to Spelman, a school to educate black
Yes,
women?
sir.
When did he ever donate $3 or $4 million to Morehouse for the education of young black men?
Right.
When did he ever establish a foundation and support a foundation to support jazz musicians who've fallen on hard luck and can't support themselves? And when did he ever hire people to promote our culture? Bill Cosby always made sure that there were jazz musicians on every one of the kind of programs that he had. And the other thing
He's a
is Bill
complicated guy,
Cosby,
yeah.
Bill Cosby isn't simply, see, some people who don't know what he did, they think he's talking down to black people as he's telling you, take some accountability, do this sort of things. I think some of his words were ill-chosen. But he's doing that with one hand, and with the other hand, he's putting millions of dollars into the upliftment of those people that he's speaking to. He thought he had a right to speak to them, and I'm not talking about the big things. I'm talking about community programs. In fact, Sister Jamin, Sister Adelaide's daughter, told me I could use a statement she wrote regarding what Bill Cosby did for the young people in her area. Anytime I want to, I just don't have it with me. So, I mean, there's a big difference between that. Why? The thing is, if somebody does a whole lot, why can't you give them the benefit of the doubt? This stuff hasn't been in any, these aren't proven charges. These are accusations. There are people, you can go and look at the proceedings from the last alien abduction conference. I mean, I'm not joking.
Yeah,
now.
he's serious.
I'm not joking. There are hundreds of people that will sit there and tell you how a spaceship came and got them, how they went up there and the aliens diddled them and did all kinds of other
Got
sexual
him
stuff.
pregnant and stuff.
But I don't believe that. I don't believe it because it's just a statement. It's something somebody is saying. It hasn't been subjected to scrutiny. It hasn't been subjected to cross-examination. When you got 300, they see you on the ropes, and the Costan case is what put him on the ropes, in which she charged him with digitally penetrating him when she wasn't in her right mind, when she was at Married Bill's house alone, so on and so forth. She
After
charged
he
him
gave
a year
her
later.
pills.
Okay, so but she took the pills. Okay, so that case put him on the ropes, and when people see you as a staggering senior citizen on the ropes with $300 million hanging out the back of your pocket, they will look at TV screen and say, hey, I think Bill Cosby did something to me. And what's to stop them from doing it? What's to stop them from doing it? They're not going to give him the money they're giving Stephen Pagonis if they defame him.
My last question is just, what is the stake, if any, of the black community in the credibility? I mean, Bill Cosby is not facing any legal implication other than this lawsuit, which is a money issue. He's got the money. My point is there, or what is the role or the stake of the black community in Bill Cosby's prosperity or lack of prosperity? Whatever his behavior, we certainly can't call it commendable or optimal. And why are we talking about what makes our community best instead of defending Bill Cosby on what he may or may not have done? That's, again, that's just
But you
my
know what?
point of view.
This conversation, I think, some of the questions that you all are bringing up shows that we need these conversations. So hopefully this will open up the dialogue for various types of topics for us to talk about, and not just here, but around our communities, because it's sorely missing. You know, the intergenerational transfer of knowledge is very important. And I believe that we need to find some increase the number of avenues to transfer that knowledge, because the little girls who are raped and impregnated at 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, they didn't get a chance to get any of our historical memory to pass on to their children, which is why in 30 years, 2 generations, we see what we have. We can reclaim them. We can reclaim them. They are us. They are our people, our future.
I want to address the last part of the question that the brother asked, and actually some of your premise. The idea is that we're here talking about Bill Cosby. No, we're not. We weren't talking about who was greater, W.B. Du Bois or Booker T. Washington. That's what the title of it was. That wasn't what we talked about. We're talking about black history. We're talking about these social issues that are affecting us, and that title is the title that brings the people into the open. But we've talked about everything. You talked about everything you wanted to. That's why we have the question and answer period. So you can pretty much talk about anything that you want to. But there's one thing that was said in terms of that there's nothing standing or urgent, you know, in other words, getting ready to happen to Bill Cosby. No. You're not paying attention. One of the articles was LAPD wants to investigate Bill Cosby. You remember when they broke into Neverland and went through Michael Jackson stuff, so on and so forth? Now, I just told you, you don't have any other sources of $26 million coming to your black schools. So that's reason number one to protect Bill Cosby. Because if Bill Cosby gets $26 million and you sit there and let him get lynched without saying a word, just let the white press just do all of these things, who else do you think is going to come and give our people anything? Nobody. Now, with respect to that LAPD, I have to read a section from an article I wrote in response to that, to the LAPD. Because I said, look, and it also addresses this other question, you know, why Bill Cosby first? I said, hey, look, okay, you want to investigate a star? I want you to investigate this star. This star is on ABC, NBC, CBS. He's an on-air consultant, and I'm going to read to you some words from a court transcript, his words on his torture of black prisoners. He said, we broke them. Numerous bones in each one of them. Their faces were just mush. They had pictures on the walls. There was blood all the way to the ceiling with finger marks like they were trying to crawl out of the room. They showed us pictures of the room. It was unbelievable. There was blood everywhere, all over the wall, all over the furniture, all on the floor. It was just everywhere. These guys, they had to shave so much hair off. One guy, they shaved off like 70 stitches in his head. You know, knees cracked. Oh, it was just, we had them begging that they would never be gang members again. Begging us. So with 66 allegations, that's against him, I had a demonstration in front of the Hollenbach station, that's in LA, chanting my name. Captain had to take them all into roll call, and that's where the internal affairs investigation started. It lasted 18 months. I was on a photo lineup, suspect lineup. I was picked out by 12 people, so I was pretty proud of that. I was the last one interviewed. The prime suspect is always the last one interviewed. They didn't get any of our unit. 38 guys. They didn't get 1 day, not 1 day of punishment. Immediately after we beat those guys, we went downstairs to the garden hose in the back of the place. We washed our hands. We had blood all over our legs, everywhere. With a dark blue uniform, you know, and in the dark, you can't see it. But when you get in the light, it looks like somebody took red paint and painted it all over you. We had to clean our badges off with water. There was blood all over them. Now, some clear thinker might say, well, that was men. That was men. That's something that a star. You want to punish a star? This is something that a star, a TV star, did and said he did. And it was elicited, and you don't know anything about it. How could something this blatant be there and you know nothing about it? But let's go on. You thought that was what he did to the men. Let's hear what he did to some women just before that. He said, we kicked the door down. We grabbed a girl that lived there, one of their girlfriends, grabbed her by the hair and stuck a gun to her head and used it as a barricade. Walked up and told them, I've got this girl. I'll blow her effing brains out if you come out with a gun. Held her like this. Threw the bitch down the stairs. Deadbolted the door. Let's play, boys. Now, that is the person who found that O.J. had fumbled his gloves. A guy I seen rush 44 plays in the Rose Bowl, never fumbled a ball once. He fumbled his glove on the first yard line where the murder took place and fumbled the second glove at his house where he lives. And they checked the gloves on O.J. They never checked the gloves on Mark Furman. Mark Furman is this on-air consultant, just like he's a respectable person, and that was his testimony. 66 charges against him, didn't do a day. He was in the O.J. trial. Most people don't know. He was convicted of perjury. So look, you want to that wasn't that long ago. That was in the 90s. You want to investigate Bill Cosby for something in 1965. I'm not talking about Bill Cosby. I'm talking about police violence. Let's go and investigate Furman, because there's no statute of limitations on murders. The gloves didn't fit O.J. That doesn't mean they didn't fit Furman. You understand me? Oh, Furman was one of these right-wing white supremacist type guys. He had met O.J. and his wife before and had pleasant conversation with them. That should throw you right there. You think he liked talking to this interracial couple? I don't think so. So, now, Patrick Brosnan is another one, on-air consultant. All right, gotta stop. The boss says I gotta stop. That's Michael is the boss today. Sorry.
You both. I think Dr. Mack pulled a fast one on you, because if you look at the topic, what was the topic again, brother?
Is Bill Cosby being lynched? Yes, sir.
If you look at his presentation, if you look at the history stretching back, if you look at the separate treatment of people like Governor Spitzer, who does what he did and ends up being a CNN analyst, I think there were two issues going on here. Was Bill Cosby allegedly guilty of what he is accused of doing or not? I think that might have been a different debate. So, in line with the topic itself and Dr. Mack's presentation, how would you evaluate your performance? Both of you.
Did you see Mary Ellis in the beginning?
Oh yeah.
Oh, okay.
Your performance was very impressive. I think you raised a lot of issues that we need to deal with in our community. You should actually consider doing another presentation to focus on a lot of those issues. I think, yeah, the sister deserves a round of applause for that.
She can write an article for the Black Star News.
And you know what? This is why I was glad that Dr. Mack asked me and I consented to come, because I knew I was going to take this opportunity to pivot off of the Bill Cosby thing to broaden the conversation for us in our community, and that's what I did. And as a result, the feedback I got, especially from some of the men, shows that I was right and it's needed. And I look forward to more dialogue on various topics. We need to really, this is serious. We need to really talk about
this. This is the same question for both of you. What do you think about the timing? A lot of these allegations have been known for a very long time. Why now? Same question to you, Dr. Mack, and same question to you, sister.
I don't know. I saw a tape with Dick Gregory in which he said he had looked into it and that Bill Cosby was making some very large moves. I believe he said, I know it was in Europe, it might have been England. I know that the first time Bill Cosby ever had one negative thing said about him was immediately after he tried to purchase NBC. After that, his son ends up dead on the highway. A love child, an alleged love child, comes out of the blue. It turns out that love child refused to take DNA and eventually got convicted, refused to take a DNA test. And then eventually got convicted of extortion.
Why do I think now? My black community, it's Women's History Month. I said this is, it's something that my black community would do because it's Women's History Month. So we'll talk about stuff, women's issues during Women's History Month, and I'm okay with that. Although we could talk about them at other times of the year because these issues are ubiquitous.
Yeah, we're going to have, I think that there were a lot of people, last week when we were talking about Sister Mary Alice coming, they had fears of this, that, and other. The reason is I'm being honest.
I bet they did.
I'm talking about right here at the conference. But I said, no, you're wrong. I said, this sister is very intelligent. This sister is organized. This sister is researching.
What y'all said about me last week?
Here's what it is. I'll tell you. But let me give you my analysis on the Sister Mary Alice. What happens is Mary Alice.
People scared of what I'm going to say.
Mary Alice is a real activist on her topic. And so she's going to talk about it. It don't matter if you're talking about, you could be talking about Kwanzaa decoration. And Mary Alice is going to put this issue out there. And that's the problem. So what happened is, all Mary Alice needed was to have the issue, to have the conversation about what she wants to have the conversation about. And Mary Alice is excellent. Couldn't have had a better person to talk about it. And as she said, we have to have more opportunities to talk about these things because she is an important voice.
I want to thank both.
Thank you.
I wish I was here last week. I would get the tape. Y'all have the tape?
I forgot them.
My question, oh my goodness, was in the history of the United States, has any two Europeans ever been arrested for raping a black female?
That's a good question. I want to hold it. I want to end this. What it is we have a meeting that we have to do right after this.
Understood.
So we're going to take that question. We're going to answer it. I want to know any other questions that there are. Are you the end of the line, brother? Yes. That's it. That's the end of the line. That's the end of the question. Sister Mary Alice, you want to end that for her?
You have another question?
Oh, she had more than one?
I had a
Because she's looking at her tape.
and I could barely see. These comments are horrible. My comment also, you had said something about Megan's Law and black women not coming forward.
That's not exactly what I said.
Oh, okay, because I was saying that, I was thinking of Ida B. Wells and so forth. Anytime that we are being attacked, it seems that we can be used against our own. And we have a habit of jumping on the bandwagon, because I thought of whenever it should have been in court first. None of these women went to court, and I don't know women to keep their mouths shut. You understand? In any situation. Oh my goodness. And also, when we talk about, I was thinking of the genocide, because when the same people that put out these 10 top songs and so forth, as Dr. Mack had once said, these are the same people that put out positive music when it comes to country music, all positive lyrics. So they know what they're doing to our community.
Right.
And we have to capture our own. We must stand always together.
Thank you, Sister.
You know what? I'm with you on that. Our community doesn't know that the racketeering that goes on in the record industry is worse than we think, because the same record companies that selectively promote that thug, drug, hoe, bee, gun, throw your gun up in the air and all that kind of stuff, those very same companies also own private prisons throughout this country. So they're selling criminality to our young people, and then when our young people fall for it, then they make money on the prison end.
Yes.
That's one thing. To close what you said, I don't have an answer for whether a white man has ever been arrested or even convicted for raping a black woman. It's plausible. I'm not saying it did happen or didn't happen, but I will say this: Black Women's Blueprint has been working for the past few years. They're preparing for next year, going to the UN, to present the case of the rape of black women in the United States. Look up Black Women's Blueprint, because they're not playing. It don't matter if black women are raped by black men, white men, blue men, brown men, purple men, yellow, orange, or whatever. At a certain point, the rape of black women and girls has got to be addressed. And they are stepping forward to do the work. Black Women's Blueprint.
So, brothers and sisters, I'm not going to preempt. Oh, you a question?
Yes, I have a question.
I want to say this. When we finish this, we got to go downstairs because we need upstairs for a meeting. You can socialize downstairs and everything, but we're going to, there's a small meeting we have to have up here.
My question simply is what does the tearing down of Bill Cosby do for the psyche of black men, as well as the black community? And what goals do those who tear him down, what goals do they have? What are their goals?
Money.
You know what? After all of this, I was getting ready to bite my tongue. The attacking of Cosby, what it does to the black man's psyche. That's hard for me to say because as a black woman, it looks to me like black male culture teaches itself or reinforces a sexual permissiveness that is not checked very much. So I would have to think about how Bill Cosby, on the one hand, not being checked, and on the other hand, his work is being checked by, the reruns being curtailed and stuff like that. But I think we need to have this conversation too. I said it earlier. At a certain point, the male behavior, males need to get the message just in generally that they are accountable for their behavior just like women and girls are held accountable for our behavior. You men don't know the messages that we women get about be a good girl, close our legs. The one thing, we're accused of being fast even as little girls. 6 and looking like this. We're accused of being fast. We're accused of being the ones that seduce the adult men, Uncle Roscoe or Grandpa or whoever. We are accused of that. Little girl don't know about seduction, but this is ubiquitous in our culture. That is how in D.C. the 11-year-old rape victim was arrested. Even though the adult men should have been arrested for statutory rape. First of all, a little 11-year-old cannot give consent, but even if you're saying she did, it's still statutory rape. Her childhood wasn't even acknowledged. That happens a lot in the black community. 2 little black girls, and we don't look at them because black girls in our community are invisible.
In answer to your question, I think that there's a message that's being sent repeatedly, and that is, one of them is that no matter how big you get, we can always tear you down. Another message is being sent, like I told you, that in the South, they say we don't care how big you get. You can found an insurance company. You can make a big. You can do hairdressing, and you can get as big as you want. Just don't get too close. But in the North, they can say, hey, you can have our daughters get as close as you want. Just don't get too big. And the message that's being sent with Bill Cosby is: 1, don't get too big. 2, your community cannot protect you. That we can make up a story so foul that we have power. We define reality, and we make people respond to it as if it were their own. And that's the message that they're sending out over and over. They're sending out that no matter how good a black man looks, it's probably corrupt, probably really no good at heart. They're sending all kinds of messages. They're saying, well, if you try to buy, look, these are our networks. We're going to do this to your people. We want to make sitcoms with a laugh track and say all kinds of violence. This is what we're going to do. Don't you get out here and play with the big boys. In fact, I actually had a quote of that from someone, where they're talking about now he's trying to play with the big boys when he wanted to buy that station. There's all kinds of messages. The message of his son is a very serious message. It's more serious than this. They said, well, if you're not scared after we did what you did with your son, after we did what we did with your son, if you're not scared when we just bring a love child out of the air, we could have sent you, you know, into trouble with that, then try this one. Oh, okay, y'all don't want to listen to 1, 2, or 3? Here's 15. Here's 16. We can do this all day. That's what they're saying. That's their message. That they can do this all day. They can make these things up all day long.
So we're going to have some closing remarks by the Honorable Dr. Adelaide Sanford.
Oh, great.
How dangerous you are, how skilled you are, so that you will understand what it is that you must do. And I don't call you beloved lightly, but it's because of how we have been named in pejorative ways that have crept into our identity. I would like to historically look at what one of the basic reasons that we are not talking about. As you know, that Africa is the site of the first people. All life began on the continent of Africa. In that ancient continent, and even up until modern times, families were constructed in a different way. Exactly. The male had several wives. Accepted, known, publicly acknowledged. There were no orphanages, because when the children from one wife died, the other wife took care of those children. It was an agricultural country, so that the need for large families and for many wives to take care of all of the needs in that society, that has not changed. The fundamental structure of society that was taken by the European, who could not have the two wives, used the enslaved women as that second wife, without recognition, without giving them their name, but breeding children for the slave trade. I believe in my heart of hearts that in the best of worlds, there would be a situation in which men who must be dominant because they are the ones that must be present to make the future. That's why so many of them are in prison, because they are the secret to the future generations. So we come into America where the enslaved woman is used almost like a wife. And because we lost the customs and traditions of our ancestors and of our people and got caught up in this over-sexualized society, we now see advertisements for Viagra and Cialis. Our ancestors didn't need that. The men in Africa didn't need that. So think about a society that has been constructed in contradiction to the reality of the nature of what society should be. We talk about an extended family. We started extended families. The other thing that I would like to say, in the years that I have lived, I have never known any instance in which a white woman could say she was raped by a black man and not feel that even if she hinted at the possibility, that man would be excoriated. And I've lived a long time. There's no way for me to believe that 40 years ago, those women were afraid to tell what had happened to them. It is not valid. The final thing that I would like to say, if you look at Rosewood, if you look at Black Wall Street in Oklahoma,
Yes.
if you will look at the people very often who were lynched, it had a financial base. Black Wall Street had businesses. All kinds of businesses. Same thing with Rosewood. Bill Cosby, son, was in a car, a Mercedes. There's no way that that wheel would have broken down and he could not have been able to drive it, because Mercedes are made so that those wheels would get you to the next place. It wasn't possible for him to have been killed because he was on the road and had a car that wasn't operable. That was when Bill Cosby was first going to use his financial prowess. And now that he's getting ready to buy a station, remember Rosewood. Remember Black Wall Street. Remember always it was about the so-called rape or humiliation of black men by black women. You have to put it in a historical context. We have been westernized and Americanized, and men feel that that's what the oppressor did, and we're so mixed up. We're not pure black anymore. We don't know what kind of instincts we have. But I will tell you that my grandfather that I knew in my lifetime, his mother was raped by the plantation owner. But it was my grandfather who taught him the skill of carpentry, who taught him how to take care of my great-grandmother, who was his mother. So I don't think that there are any men in the world on this globe who raised the children born of the rape of their wives. You understand? And loved them and protected them. So you can't tell me too much bad about a black man, because I know of his mental and physical torture. And I know if he does not know his history that he will succumb to the role of the oppressor. You think Bill Cosby was lynched? They're lynching our children in school every day. I think pedophilia is a major issue, but it is not the Bill Cosby issue. We all disagree with rape. We all disagree with pedophilia. There's no doubt about it. But Thomas Jefferson was the rapist. He was a pedophile because the woman of African ancestry that he had the children by was underage. Put that in a historical context. And remember what a family means. It means a group that's dependent upon each other. I used to tell my husband, you need more than one wife, because I got to go. I got something to do. I always told him that he was first in my life. I'll see you in 2 weeks. And I used to tell him, I said, you need more than one wife, because when I'm gone, you need somebody to take care of you. No, I said that in a joke. But I'm saying that the role of the woman is a very important role. She is the protector. But in ancient African traditions, the family was, each man had several wives, not girlfriends. Finally, if he offered them the pill, they know the word no.
Just So thank you everyone for coming out today. Thank you for listening. Thank you for challenging our debaters. And it's been a wonderful program.